But if Congress won't act soon to protect future generations, I will. I will direct my cabinet to come up with executive actions we can take now and in the future to reduce pollution, prepare our communities for the consequences of climate change, and speed the transition to more sustainable sources of energy.
Now, when I hear that, I hear one person basically telling a country of 30 million people that, guys, it's okay, I will take care of it. I will write a law which will ban people from polluting. I really think that this is a very troublesome aspect, not just of the Obama presidency, but of the Bush presidency, of the Clinton presidency, of the American president in the 21st century. The fact that he can talk about, himself just bypassing 535 elected people and just putting out some sort of law. It doesn't really matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's to give everybody a free bunny rabbit or to make sure that there's no pollution. I just think in a republic, it's something that should not be feasible, and obviously it shouldn't be praised as it has been. But I guess that's just my view.
No, I think, Yal, you make some good points, and I think that there can be many arguments to be had about how, like you said, President Clinton, President Bush, even President Obama has overstepped their constitutional authority as president. But I think that in terms of these executive orders, I really don't see executive orders as anything but a public relations tool to pacify the public and make them think that certain things are happening or that the president is trying to do something. But at the end of the day, when he speaks about climate change and some executive orders, I really think he's just essentially just throwing a few carrots to the environmentalists who've been pressuring him for some time now. When all actuality, like, these executive orders, I think, are very weak. I think all executive orders, to me, are pretty weak. I mean, they do some things, but eventually, again, they're more so a tool. Because once you have an executive order.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think one part is you had Ron Paul, when he was running for president, talked about executive orders, and somebody asked him if you were president, would you ban executive orders? Somebody asked Ron Paul that. Yes. And really what Ron Paul said is like, no, I mean, you need them. The president has to be able to move troops around and do stuff, but you cannot unilaterally declare war or impose a tax or, anything like that, which is what we've seen in the last few years.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. So I think you don't have much to worry about, though, on climate change. Now there are many other hosts of issues, though, that I would say that in terms of presidential power and the executive overstepping their bounds, you should definitely be worried about. But
let's hear about those.
Well, I think that to get on to maybe a topic that we were probably going to move on to, maybe the drone strikes. It concerns me a bit when Americans, a lot of Americans don't even know fully how these drone strikes are being implemented, how these people are being targeted, who's being targeted, the casualties. I know that a lot of the media outlets are now covering the story, but it's a bit frightening to think that the drone strikes and things like that are being implemented in this manner. And I think that when you look at some of the other topics that we're going to be discussing in terms of just the amount of information the federal government requests from social media outlets like Facebook and Google without warrants is a bit concerning. So I think these issues are issues for sure that the public needs to stay vigilant about. But I'm concerned that the average American or the average individual citizen is not really focused on these things.
Alan, you sound like me.
Yeah, it's a bit. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that I'm completely against drone strikes. I think that when it comes to the war on terror, our country has to be vigilant in making sure that it's protected. Now, I think that President Obama addressed it in the State of the Union, though, that he will work with Congress to address some of the issues that they have with the drone program. And hopefully, I feel for all the innocent people in Yemen and other Middle Eastern countries that have lost loved ones in the drone strikes. But at the end of the day, some may argue that the drone casualties regarding the drone strikes have actually decreased since when they initially implemented them in Yemen. And some would also say that a lot of Yemeni citizens, while there may be a percentage who, are against it and do not support the drone strikes, some of them would actually support them and be in favor of them, in that they've helped to stem the tide of Islamist extremists in that country, because the Yemeni government was having trouble prior to the implementation of the drone strikes to keep the Islamic extremists in line.
Now, who are the Islamic extremists? Are these the same people that we gave weapons to in Libya, and we're trying to do the same in Syria? Or is this the same group?
Well, it could be, and I know a lot of times we are on both sides of the issue when it comes to.
Well, not we. You and I are.
Well,
we're fine.
Not you and I, but I meant I guess the United States government, when they engage in supplying arms and things like that to other countries. Some people who are our friends one day turn out to be our enemies, or are described and framed as our enemies later on down the line.
Oh, I love that you said that. Described and framed. I think that's perfect.
It could be, and so I think that I think that eventually, there may be a decrease in drone attacks and drone strikes if, as the president said, he's going to now confer with Congress more as to their issues and their concerns with the program. So.
Yeah, well, so far he's been running the show. There's an article in the New York Times, I think about a year ago, basically saying that President Barack Obama, he green lights every single drone strike. He has to. He gives the authority. And I think, conversely, that most of these strikes are just basically creating more pissed-off citizens across the world. We're seeing in Waziristan up in Pakistan, up near the border of Afghanistan, people are pissed. They're having these huge rallies, like, burning American effigies. This is the stuff that we only thought happened during George Bush's reign when we invaded Iraq. And I'm still not even so sure as to whether or not the drones are better. I think, if you look at it cost-effective matter and looking at nickels and dimes, I'm sure it's fine, but the fact remains that we're still invading countries' airspace. We're still invading countries. We still have troops all over the Middle East surrounding Iran, continually attempting to, give all sorts of rhetoric like that we're going to bomb them or we're going to support Israel. I think they're dangerous. I think foreign policy now is more dangerous with drones, and the only reason I say that is because we're more willing to send one in and drop bombs, whereas before we would have been more reluctant to send in, human beings.
Yeah, I think that it's just a tough. I guess it's just a tough issue, because I think that while Congress may curtail drones and may communicate to the president that these drone attacks are unacceptable, or they want to decrease in them. Once all the troops leave Afghanistan, I guess you could logically also assume that it's a possibility that drones may increase, because of the fact that we're not having as many troops on the ground in some of these countries. And then if we do withdraw a lot of our troops, drones may be the Defense Departments or the U.S. government or military's only suggestion or way to still have their foot in the game or still have some sort of presence in the Middle East.
Do you now? I have to get to the point you were talking about. Islamist extremists. Is that really, at the end of the day, why we have over upwards of 160 military bases? I mean, what is the point of having all these wars going on at one time? What is the United States really trying to do at the end of the day? Do you think it really ties to because they don't want an extremely religious government that happens to love Islam?
Well, I think that I think that during the Bush years that there was a thinking that we need to democracy works great for any country. And I think that all the bases that we have, all the military interventions that we've had, people still have this thinking, even in the Obama administration, some of the countries that we've, I guess you can say, liberated or involved ourselves in militarily. But I'm of the thinking that, I hate to see men, women, and children slaughtered, and I hate to see repressive governments, but at the same time, our country just can no longer afford to be involved in every foreign conflict.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's one thing I respect about Ron Paul, even though he has some stances that are a bit out there. Just the fact that he wants to pull back some of the bases, close some of the bases overseas that we do have. And I think that eventually that's going to happen, whether it's a Democratic or a Republican
It'll
president.
have to happen, right?
Yeah, it will have to happen. But, hey, I'd say that's another 15, 20 years down the road, because I think that the powers that be, the defense interests, and things like that will continue to say that we need to spend money and be here or be there. So I think eventually it'll be a sort of a enough is enough situation. But
you got to that point there, Alan.
Yes.
You talked about the defense interest. Now, you've been in D.C., you've lived around D.C., you've been in the areas where you see these huge buildings maintained by Lockheed Martin, by Northrop Grumman, by all these people. I mean, obviously they have a vested interest in continuing this whole so-called war on terror around the world. But
visit libertyinexile.com.